The alien warship shook like a giant metal beast breathing its last breath. Red lights flashed across the ceiling, alarms screamed, and smoke filled the long hallway outside the medical bay. Inside, the room was full of panic. Alien medics with shining silver skin moved quickly around a huge creature lying on the floor. The creature was a warrior of the Rackle species, a massive beast-like alien with thick armor plates on his body, for glowing eyes and muscles like stone walls. His name was Rackle, a legend among his people, strong enough to lift a battle tank with one hand. But now he lay dying. His breathing was slow and heavy, each breath sounding like a breaking mountain. The lead alien medic stepped back, shaking his head. "His wounds are too deep," he said. "No weapon on this ship can cause damage like this." Something new hit him. Something deadly. Another medic scanned Rackle's body. The scanner beeped with error signs. It could not understand his injuries. Purple blood dripped from Rackle's side and spread across the cold metal floor. The smell of burning flesh mixed with electric smoke filled the room. Every alien inside could feel fear rising like cold water up their backs. Finally, the lead medic made the call no one wanted to hear. His voice was cold and flat. "Stop all treatment," he said. "There is nothing we can do. Rackle will die soon." The room fell silent. Even the alarms outside felt distant for a moment. The medics lowered their tools and stepped away from the huge warrior. Some looked down in sadness. Others looked away because it was too painful to watch their strongest fighter fade like this. Rackle's fingers twitched weakly. His chest rose and fell in slow, painful rhythm. He was still alive but barely holding on. Then the door slid open with a sharp hiss. A human stepped inside. He was young, maybe in his early 20s, wearing a dark blue uniform with red stripes. His name was Lieutenant Mason Hale. He was small compared to the aliens, only half their height, fragile looking next to Rackle's giant body. The aliens stared at him with surprise and confusion. Humans were rare in this part of space. Most alien species saw humans as strange, unpredictable, and dangerous. Some respected them. Others feared them. Mason did not speak. He walked straight toward Rackle with calm steps. The medics moved aside, unsure what he was planning. One of them tried to warn him. "Humans, stay back. He is unstable. His species can crush your bones even in this weak state." But Mason ignored them. He knelt down beside the dying giant. Rackle's 4 glowing eyes slowly shifted to look at him. There was pain in those eyes, but also something else: recognition. The kind you feel when you see someone you trust with your life. Mason touched Rackle's face gently. His hand looked tiny against the alien's armored skin. Then he leaned close and whispered softly, "Easy, buddy. I'm here." A shock went through the room. None of the aliens moved or spoke. It felt like time stopped. Humans were not supposed to touch Rackle's species. Their skin was too rough, too strong, too dangerous for human flesh. But Mason held his hand there, steady and warm. Rackle's breathing, which had been uneven and weak, suddenly changed. It slowed. It settled. Like a wild storm calming down after hearing a familiar voice. One of the medics whispered in disbelief, "Why does he respond to the human? We used every medical tool, every healing device. Nothing worked." Another alien replied quietly, "Maybe it is not medical. Maybe it is something else." Mason carefully checked Rackle's wounds with his hands, not afraid of the burning heat or sharp edges around the injured plates. "You're going to be fine," Mason whispered, even though he wasn't sure. "I won't leave you. Not now." Some aliens were confused. Some were impressed. But all of them felt something new in the room. A strange human energy, a calm determination that could melt mountains. Humans were small, yes. Physically weak compared to alien warriors. But they had something else, something powerful. Something that made them dangerous in ways no alien could understand. Mason's presence alone changed the air. Rackle's breaths became a little steadier. His body relaxed. The purple glow in his eyes brightened slightly, as if a small spark of life was returning. The lead medic stepped forward, still shocked. "Human, what are you doing? You cannot save him. This is impossible." Mason looked up at the alien medic with steady eyes. "Then we make it possible." Outside the medical bay, explosions shook the ship again. The enemy was still out there, hunting them. But inside this room, for these few moments, the war did not matter. Only Rackle mattered. Only the bond between a human and an alien giant mattered. Why did Rackle trust Mason so deeply? Why was Mason so brave, even when every alien saw death in front of them? Why were they connected like brothers? No one knew yet. But one thing was clear. This was not just a medical emergency. This was the beginning of a story that would change everything. Rackle lay on the floor, still breathing in slow, heavy waves. The medical bay lights flickered softly as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Mason stayed kneeling beside the giant alien, one hand resting gently on his huge arm. The aliens around them watched silently, stunned by what they were seeing. They had never witnessed a human calming a dying Rackle warrior with nothing but a soft voice and a touch. But this calm moment slowly opened a door inside Mason's mind. Memories he had pushed away for months came back one by one, like old ghosts rising. Mason remembered the first time he ever met Rackle. It was not inside a clean medical bay. It was not calm. It was not safe. It was on a battlefield covered in smoke, dirt, and death. The flashback formed clearly in Mason's mind. He had been a fresh recruit then, barely trained, barely ready. His team was ambushed on a rocky moon. Enemy drones rained fire from above, and explosions shook the ground like angry gods. Mason ran through smoke and broken metal, his heart beating so fast it hurt. He saw his squad leader fall. He saw his friends get separated. He was alone, terrified and wounded. Then the ground cracked open beside him. A massive shadow rose from the dust, roaring loud enough to shake the planet. Mason had never seen anything so huge in his life. It looked like a living tank made of stone and muscle. For glowing eyes stared down at him. Razor-sharp horns curved around its armored head. The creature's breath was hot on his face. Mason had thought, "This is how I die." But the giant alien had not attacked him. Instead, it turned its body, placing itself between Mason and the incoming fire. Enemy drones blasted the alien's armored back, but it didn't move. It shielded Mason without saying a word. The alien roared and charged forward, crushing drones with its bare hands, tearing machines apart like paper. Mason watched in shock and fear and strange admiration. After the battlefield fell silent, the giant creature looked back at Mason. It lowered itself to one knee, tilting its head like a curious animal trying to understand a tiny new creature. Mason remembered whispering, terrified, Are you going to eat me?" The giant made a strange sound, half growl, half laugh. That was the first time Rackle and Mason met. From that moment, a strange bond had formed between them. Rackle followed Mason back to the human camp. He sat beside the humans but didn't speak their language. He watched Mason closely, copying his movements like a huge child learning from a small teacher. Mason had been scared at first, but Rackle never hurt him, not even by accident. Instead, he guarded Mason like a loyal beast protects its pack. When danger came, Rackle stood in front of Mason. When Mason was hungry, Rackle brought food. When Mason was sad, Rackle made small rumbling sounds and placed his massive hand near Mason, like an invitation to sit. Other soldiers called Rackles a monster. Some called him a pet. Some called him a weapon. But Mason came to understand something important. Rackle didn't see himself as Mason's pet or weapon. He saw Mason as his equal, his friend, his pack. Now, back in the medical bay, Mason looked at the injured warrior lying before him. He felt a heavy pain in his chest, not fear, but the fear of losing someone who had once saved his life. Rackle's glowing eyes fluttered weakly open again. They focused on Mason, and a soft rumble came from his throat. Mason knew that sound. It was the same sound Rackle had made when Mason once sat beside him after the battle. A sound that meant trust. A sound that meant, "I am with you." "Yeah," Mason whispered. "I remember too." One of the alien medics finally spoke. "Human, this creature protected you once?" Mason nodded. "More than once." "Why?" the medic asked. "Rackle warriors do not protect other species." Mason looked at Rackle's giant hand beside him. "Because I protected him first," he said softly. "Not with weapons, but with kindness." The medics exchanged confused looks. They did not understand. They believed strength was measured in force, power, and armor. They did not understand the strength of loyalty, trust, and simple human stubbornness. Rackle breathed out, a slow, shaky breath, but this time something different happened. His hand moved, only a little, but enough to touch Mason's arm lightly. His fingers were huge, heavy, and dangerous, but soft in this moment. Mason held onto the alien's hand without hesitation. The ship trembled again as another explosion hit somewhere far down the corridor. The war was still outside this room, hungry and cold. But inside, the story between a human and a dying alien grew deeper, more powerful, and more unbreakable. Rackle had saved Mason in the past. Now it was Mason's turn. And everyone in the room could feel it. This bond was not normal. This bond was not small. This bond was something the galaxy had never seen before. Something that might change everything. The medical bay shook again as another explosion echoed through the ship. Dust drifted down from the ceiling like gray snow. Lights flickered. The alien medics looked up nervously, but Mason did not move from Rackle's side. His focus stayed on the giant alien who lay there, breathing in weak, painful gasps. Rackle's wounds were getting worse. Purple blood leaked slowly from cracks in his armored plates. Every few seconds his body twitched, like his muscles were fighting a battle inside him. "Mason," one of the medics said carefully, "he cannot survive much longer. His organs are shutting down." Mason ignored the words. He carefully lifted a damaged plate on Rackle's chest and looked underneath. What he saw made his stomach twist. Mechanical wires mixed with living tissue. Flickering lights deep inside. A strange dark energy pulsing through the wound. It was like something had infected both his body and technology at the same time. "What kind of weapon did this?" Mason whispered. The medic answered in a trembling voice. "Something from the enemy. Something we have never seen before." Mason's mind raced. Alien tech was advanced. Human tech was adaptive. Rackle's body was a mixture of both, living flesh and biomechanical armor. That meant traditional alien medicine would fail. And it had. The medic had already declared Rackle untreatable. But Mason knew human battlefield medicine was different. Humans didn't rely on perfect machines. Humans used instincts. Humans improvised. Humans survived with scraps, dirt, cloth, and stubborn hope. Rackle needed that kind of thinking now. Mason reached for the alien medical table and grabbed supplies. Not alien ones, but his own. A small human medkit. The alien stared at it like it was a strange toy from a primitive species. "You're going to use human materials?" the medic asked, shocked. Mason didn't look up. "Human medicine saved me 100 times. Let's see if it can save him once." He opened the kit. Bandages. Pressure gel. Liquid stitches. Manual shock pads. Old tools, not shiny alien machines. The aliens watched in disbelief. Their technology was clean, precise, perfect. Mason's tools were rough, simple, and sometimes painful. But humans had one advantage. Their medicine didn't care about rules. Mason cleaned Rackle's wound with a cloth soaked in antiseptic. Rackle growled in pain. A deep, shaking growl that made the floor vibrate. Mason quickly placed his hand on Rackle's arm. "Easy, easy. Stay with me." Rackle slowly calmed again. Mason pushed deeper into the wound, using a small human tool to pull out pieces of burning metal. Purple blood splashed on his arms. The alien medics stepped back, shocked. "Humans, stop. You will damage him more." But Mason shook his head. "He's already dying. I need to find what's killing him." And then he found it. A small, dark device buried inside Rackle's ribs. It pulsed with a faint red light. It looked alive, like a parasite made of metal and evil intent. Mason's eyes widened. "What is this thing?" The alien medic swallowed hard. A death seed. A forbidden weapon. It eats both flesh and machine. No species has ever removed one. Mason didn't think. He acted. He grabbed the device with his gloved hand and pulled. Rackle roared, a roar so powerful the lights above cracked. The ship trembled. Even Emetics stumbled backwards in fear. Mason held on, his arms shaking from the force, but he didn't stop. He pulled harder. With a sudden snap, the device ripped free. Rackle collapsed into silent stillness. Mason stared at the small pulsing thing in his hand. It looked like a tiny red heart, still beating, still alive, still dangerous. "Destroy it," a medic shouted. Mason didn't hesitate. He grabbed a metal tray, slammed the device onto it, and smashed it with the butt of his tool. Sparks flashed. Smoke burst upward. The device screamed, yes, actually screamed as it died. Then it went dark. Rackle breathed out sharply, as if a huge weight had been lifted from his chest. But he was still far from safe. His wound was open and bleeding more now that the parasite was gone. Mason moved fast. He used human pressure gel to seal the bleeding. He applied bandages that tightened like living cloth. He used liquid stitches that burned like fire, but closed deep wounds instantly. The alien medics watched in silent amazement. They had never seen someone work like this. Like a soldier. Like a surgeon. Like someone fighting death with nothing but their own hands. Finally, Mason leaned back, breathing hard. His hands were shaking from exhaustion. He looked at Rackle. No movement. No sound. Mason's heart dropped. He grabbed Rackle's shoulder and shook him gently. "Rackle, hey. Big guy. Don't do this. Come on." Still nothing. "Mason," a medic whispered softly. "He is gone." Mason didn't accept it. Not even for a second. He placed both hands on Rackle's massive chest. He whispered, voice trembling. "You saved my life. Now it's my turn. You hear me? You don't get to leave yet." For a long moment, the room was painfully silent. Then, a breath. A deep, rough breath. Rackle's chest rose. His eyes opened, dim, but alive. The medics gasped. Mason closed his eyes in relief. The impossible had just happened. And somewhere deep in the ship, the enemy realized something terrifying. Their strongest weapon had failed. Their target still lived. Their new target was the human who saved him. The medical bay lights steadied for a moment, but a new warning siren echoed through the entire ship, a sharp, cold sound that every alien feared. It was not the alarm for battle, not the alarm for fire. It was the alarm for something far worse. Internal breach. Someone inside the ship was attacking. The medics froze. Their faces turned pale as metal. Rackle lay breathing weakly, his eyes half open, still recovering. Mason stayed beside him, one hand on the giant alien's shoulder. Then the ship's AI voice spoke through the speakers, calm but chilling. "Unauthorized units detected," it said. "Unknown machines moving inside the ventilation tunnels. All crew prepare." Mason stood quickly. "Machines? You mean drones?" The medic nodded nervously. "Not ours. Enemy infiltration drones. They must have slipped inside during the battle." Mason looked at Rackle, vulnerable, wounded, unable to defend himself. The enemy wasn't trying to destroy the ship. They were coming back to finish their target, to finish Rackle. And maybe Mason too. A sudden metallic scraping sound ran along the ceiling vents, sharp like claws scratching metal. Every alien turned toward the noise. The lights flickered again, dimmer this time. Rackle growled softly, trying to rise, but Mason pressed his hand on the alien's chest. "No," he whispered firmly. "You're not strong enough yet. Let me handle this." Rackle's glowing eyes tightened, as if angry at his own weakness. But he didn't move. He trusted Mason. Too much to fight back against those words. The medic swallowed hard. "Human, you cannot fight enemy drones alone. They are fast. They are deadly. They are programmed to kill anything that protects Rackle." Mason's jaw clenched. "Good. That means they'll come to me first." The vent above them suddenly bulged outward, like something inside was pushing hard to break through. All medics stepped back. Mason didn't. He slowly reached behind him and grabbed the only weapon he had, a small emergency shock baton from his belt. It wasn't made to fight enemy drones. It wasn't strong enough. But humans were not known for giving up when things looked impossible. The vent cracked. A metallic black shape dropped from the ceiling, landing like a spider made of knives. Its red eye focused instantly on Rackle. Target acquired. Mason moved before it could leap. He slammed the shock baton against the drone's eye. Sparks flew. The drone screamed in a high metallic tone and turned toward Mason with violent speed. 2 more drones crawled out of the ceiling, their legs clicking like insect claws across metal. The medics panicked. Some ran behind medical counters. Others froze. None of them were trained for this. But Mason stepped in front of Rackle. Small human. Tiny compared to the giant warrior. But at this moment, he stood like a wall, unbreakable. The first drone lunged. Mason ducked low, rolled beneath its body, and smashed the shock baton into its joint. The drone fell, twitching. The second drone attacked with a spinning blade. Mason blocked with his forearm armor, sparks cutting across his uniform. Pain shot through his arm, but he didn't back away. He grabbed the drone, slammed it on the floor, and stomped its core until it broke. The third drone was faster. It got past Mason and leapt toward Rackle. Rackle tried to lift his arm to defend himself, but he was too weak. The drone's blade opened like a bright red star, ready to strike the wounded giant's throat. Mason didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He didn't fear. He threw a shock baton across the room like a spear. The metal rod stabbed straight into the drone's eye, exploding in tiny sparks. The drone fell dead inches from Rackle's face. Silence filled the room. The medics stared at Mason in awe, as if seeing something they had never understood about humans. Fear, shock, respect, all mixed into one. Rackle gazed at Mason too, and a faint blue glow appeared in his eyes, a sign of deep emotion in his species. Gratitude, loyalty, something ancient and powerful. But the silence didn't last long. The ship's AI spoke again, this time with urgency. Warning. Primary power grid sabotaged. Unknown intruder detected in engineering. Mason turned toward the hallway. That's the real threat, he said. Someone let those drones in. Someone wants Rackle dead. A medic whispered, voice shaking. Who would do such a thing? Mason didn't look back. He picked up a fallen drone's metal shard and held it like a blade. Someone who knows we're dangerous together. Behind him, Rackle tried to speak, his voice weak but deep. Ma son. Mason turned and placed his hand gently on Rackle's massive arm. Rest, buddy. I'll handle this. Rackle closed his eyes slowly, trusting him once again. Mason took a breath, stepped into the dark hallway, and walked toward the enemy hiding inside their ship. Somewhere deep in the ship, someone was setting a trap. Someone who feared the bond between a human and a giant alien warrior. Someone who had no idea what was about to come for them. The hallway outside the medical bay was dark, long, and silent. Only emergency red lights blinked every few seconds, painting the walls in angry colors. Mason walked forward slowly, holding the broken drone blade like a knife. His heart beat fast, but his mind was calm. He had only one goal now. Find the intruder. Protect Rackle. Every few steps, he heard something, a soft mechanical clink, a faint buzzing sound, like tiny machines crawling inside the walls. Someone was controlling them. Someone still watching him. Someone waiting. Mason tightened his grip on the blade. He passed by shattered lights, broken panels, and smoke leaking from damaged vents. It was clear the intruder had come through these tunnels, cutting their way deeper into the ship. Mason knew he had little time. Rackle was alive for now, but weak. If the intruder reached the power core, they could finish everything with one move. Mason reached the engineering deck door. It was half open, sparks dripping from its edges like falling stars. He slipped inside. The room was huge, filled with humming machines and glowing blue energy columns. Pipes ran across the ceiling like iron veins. But Mason's eyes locked on one thing. A tall figure standing in the center, its shadow long and sharp against the glowing floor. The intruder turned slowly. It wasn't human. It wasn't alien. It wasn't entirely machine. It was a hybrid, a creature with dark metal skin, glowing red joints, and a long, segmented tail made of blades. Its face was half mechanical skull, half living tissue. Its eyes were small burning dots, cold and hateful. It spoke with a voice that sounded like a broken radio. "You should not have interfered, human." Mason lifted the blade. "You tried to kill my friend." The creature tilted its head. "The Rackle warrior is a threat. If he lives, the war changes. His bond with you makes him unpredictable, dangerous." Mason stepped closer. "Then you came for both of us." "Yes," the creature answered. "You, human, are the real problem. Your species, your mind, your stubborn will, these things break our logic. You make the impossible become possible. That cannot be allowed." Mason didn't blink. Too late. The creature lunged forward, faster than any machine Mason had ever seen. Its tail whipped toward him, slicing the air. Mason jumped back, the blade barely missing his face. Sparks flew where it struck the metal floor. The creature attacked again. Mason dodged left, then right, then rolled under a swinging arm. But the fight wasn't fair. Mason was small, tired, and weaponless except for a broken shard. The creature was designed for killing, designed for speed, designed to finish him. "You cannot protect him," the creature hissed. "You are weak." Mason's eyes narrowed. "You think strength only means power?" he said. "You think machines and weapons make you strong?" The creature jumped at him again. Mason blocked with his forearm armor, pain shooting through his bone. But he didn't fall. He pushed back. "I'll show you what real strength is." He charged. The creature struck downward, but Mason slid under its legs, slashing the blade across its knee joint. The metal tore open. Sparks burst out. The creature stumbled. Mason didn't stop. He leapt onto a railing, grabbed a loose cable hanging from the ceiling, and swung down like a soldier trained on pure instinct. He wrapped the cable around the creature's head and pulled with all his strength. Electricity shot from the damaged cable, shocking both of them. Mason's body trembled with pain. His muscles burned. His vision blurred. But he held on. The creature screamed, a sound like a dying engine. It tried to throw Mason off. Its tail slashed wildly, cutting deep into Mason's side. Blood spilled down his uniform. But Mason didn't let go. He gritted his teeth, his fingers locked around the cable. "This is strength," Mason growled. "Not metal. Not weapons. Not fear. This is human strength." The electricity surged harder. The creature's glowing eyes flickered. Its body shook violently. Then, its chest exploded in a burst of sparks and smoke. The creature collapsed to the floor, smoking and twitching. The red dots in its eyes faded one by one until only darkness remained. Mason fell to his knees, breathing hard, blood dripping from his wound. His vision wavered. The fight had taken everything he had left. He pressed his hand against his cut, wincing. He had killed the intruder. But the threat wasn't over. The creature's dying voice crackled from its broken speaker. "You cannot save him. Others are coming." Mason froze. Others? More machines? More assassins? Rackle was still weak. Still wounded. Still defenseless. Mason forced himself to stand. His legs shook, but he didn't stop. He turned and began to run back toward the medical bay, faster than his body wanted to move. His friend needed him. And Mason would not let anything, not machines, not war, not death, take Rackle from him. Not while he still breathed. The lights in the medical bay flickered again, but this time it was not because of damage. It was because the alien soldier, Tarek, was waking up. For a moment, everything felt silent. Even the machines around the bed seemed to hold their breath. The alien medics stood frozen. Other soldiers pressed their backs to the walls, unsure if they should run or watch. And in the center of the room stood the human, Captain Rowan. His hands were still glowing faintly with that strange human warmth, something the aliens could not explain and had never seen. But Rowan didn't care if anyone understood. He only cared about one thing. Tarek. The huge alien slowly opened his eyes. His chest rose. His claws twitched. His heavy armored tail scraped the floor. Everyone expected him to roar, to attack, to lose control, but instead he only blinked in confusion and looked around the room like a lost child. Rowan stepped closer. "Hey," he said softly. "Easy, you're safe." Tarek's voice came out rough, but clear. "You pulled me back? I was falling." Rowan smiled gently.
"Yeah."
"You weren't going anywhere. I wasn't letting you go." A strange sound passed through the room. It was the alien medics gasping in disbelief. According to their scanners, Tarek's wounds should have taken 3 weeks to repair. But in front of them, his skin was already sealed, his energy levels rising, his breathing strong. It made no sense. Alien tech couldn't do this. Medicine couldn't do this. Only the human did it. One of the alien scientists stepped forward, shocked. "Human, how did you heal a warrior whose body was already shutting down?" Rowan didn't answer. He did not want to argue or explain. He just gently checked Tarek's breathing again like a protective friend. But Tarek answered for him. "He didn't heal me," Tarek said proudly, lowering his huge armored head toward Rowan. "He called me back. He made me fight. He refused to let me die." The room fell silent again. Every alien present realized something dangerous, something powerful. Humans didn't heal. Humans refused to lose. Rowan looked at Tarek and shook his head. "You did the hard part. I just helped a little." But Tarek didn't believe that. He lifted one huge claw and placed it over Rowan's small human hand. The difference in size was shocking. Rowan's whole hand looked like a child's compared to the alien's huge palm. "You saved my life," Tarek said softly. "My clan owes you a debt." Just then, alarms started screaming. A senior officer ran inside. "We have incoming ships. Unknown signatures. They're coming straight for the medical bay." Everyone turned in shock. Tarek pushed himself off the bed, still weak, but ready to stand. Rowan grabbed his arm. "You're not strong enough to fight yet." Tarek growled, but not at Rowan, at the danger approaching them. "They are not here for you. They are here for me. My enemies. They detected I was dying and they want to finish it." The doors shook under a heavy impact.
Bang, bang, bang.
The walls trembled. Rowan instantly placed himself between Tarek and the door, like a tiny shield trying to protect a mountain. The alien stared at him, stunned at this insane act. Tarek tried to push Rowan aside.
"Move."
"You are small. They will crush you." Rowan didn't move. "They'll have to crush me first." For a second, Tarek froze. No one, no alien, no warrior had ever said something like that to him. No one had ever stood in front of him to protect him. Another explosion hit the door. Smoke started leaking inside. Sparks flew. Everyone in the room panicked, scrambling to hide, cover, or call for backup. But Rowan didn't blink. Instead, he cracked his neck and whispered, "All right, if they want to fight." Then he gave Tarek a small grin. "They're about to learn why humans are dangerous." Tarek felt a powerful shiver go through his whole body. Not from fear, from respect, from pride, from something he never felt before, the desire to fight beside a human. The doors tore open. Smoke filled the room. Silhouettes entered, tall, armored, carrying weapons. But Rowan stepped forward first.
His voice was calm.
"Hey." The enemy soldiers paused for a second. Rowan raised his fists. "He's not dying today." And that is how the human and the wounded alien stood side by side, ready to face an entire strike team, with fire in their hearts and death at their door. The enemy soldiers froze for a moment, staring at the human and the massive alien warrior standing side by side. Rowan's small frame looked fragile next to Tarek, but the calm in his eyes and the steady way he held his fists made the air itself feel heavy with danger. Tarek roared, a low, shaking sound that rolled through the entire room. Sparks from broken machines danced across the floor as the battle seemed to pause for a heartbeat. Rowan didn't flinch. He stepped forward slightly, whispering, "Stay calm, we'll get through this." Tarek's 4 glowing eyes focused on him, filled with trust, awe, and something deeper, something even the aliens around them could feel but couldn't name. Together, human and warrior became one force, united not by species, not by technology, but by loyalty and courage that no machine could ever calculate. The enemy attacked. They lunged, bladed weapons swinging, guns spitting sparks. Rowan moved with impossible speed, dodging, parrying, and striking. He wasn't strong like Tarek, but humans had something the enemy couldn't predict: creativity in chaos, instinct in danger, courage in impossibility. Tarek roared and struck, smashing enemy soldiers aside. His movements were clumsy at first, weak from injury, but Rowan guided him. One human and one alien, side by side, became a perfect storm. Sparks flew. Metal cracked. The enemy fell back, shocked that a human could fight so fiercely beside a giant alien warrior. The medics watched from the shadows, their mouths open. They had never seen this before. Not in legends. Not in history. Humans were small, fragile, unpredictable, and yet here one human was reshaping reality with sheer will. The last enemy soldier raised a blade to strike Rowan from behind. Before anyone could react, Tarek's claw shot out like lightning, catching the enemy and throwing him across the room. Rowan spun and used the chaos to disarm 2 more attackers at once. The room fell quiet. Smoke filled the air. The enemy was gone, or at least retreating. Rowan and Tarek stood side by side, breathing heavily. Tarek's wounds were still there, still raw, but he was alive. Rowan's uniform was torn, his arm bleeding, but he smiled faintly. "You did it," Tarek said, his voice deep, rumbling with exhaustion. "I owe you everything." Rowan shook his head. "No," he said simply. "I didn't save a soldier. I saved my friend." The aliens around them murmured among themselves. Some bowed in respect. Some shook their heads in disbelief. They had always measured strength in armor, in weapons, in brute force. Now they understood it could also be measured in loyalty, courage, and the unwillingness to give up, even against impossible odds. Tarek looked at Rowan with his glowing eyes, a faint smile breaking through the pain. Humans break every rule, and yet they survive. They win. Rowan helped Tarek sit. He pressed a hand gently on the giant's arm. "We survive," he said softly, "because we fight for each other. That's what makes us dangerous." For a moment, peace settled over the medical bay. The alarms had stopped. Smoke cleared. The medics approached, cautiously this time, checking Tarek's vital signs. But then, a loud, distorted message cut through the silence. It echoed through the ship like a shadow creeping in the dark. "Rackle is alive, but not for long. Human interference will be punished. Prepare yourselves, the real hunt begins." Rowan's eyes narrowed. "They're coming back," he said, his voice steady but tense. "Stronger. Smarter. Hunting us." Tarek's tail lashed the floor. "Then we'll be ready," he said. "Together." Rowan smiled faintly, looking at the giant warrior beside him. The bond between them had become stronger than fear, stronger than any weapon, stronger than the enemy itself. Outside the medical bay, the ship trembled again. Somewhere in the darkness, new enemies were gathering, waiting, calculating. But one thing was clear. Human and alien, friend and warrior, were a force no one had ever seen before. And the galaxy would soon learn why humans were never to be underestimated. The screen fades to black. Cliffhanger. The enemy is coming. The humans are ready. And the war is far from over.